ka-generals, and welcome back to Math Learning. So our topic for this moment is all about inverse of a function. At the end of this session, you will be able to number 1, understand the meaning of inverse of a function. Number 2, determine whether a relation shows a one-to-one function. Number 3, find the inverse of a function, and find the domain and range of an inverse function. But before we start, I would like to thank you all for watching this video right now. So thank you very much. As know first, what is a one-to-one relation or what is a one-to-one function? So sabi dito, meron dito nakalagay na statement na ang kay Pedro ay kay Pedro lamang at ang akin ay akin lamang. So meaning to say, in short, ang iyo ay iyo lamang at ang akin ay akin lamang. So ibig sabihin, sa'yo nga, pero tanong lang, gusto ka ba? So that is a one-to-one relation or one-to-one function. It tells us the relation between something, and this is a function, which is specifically a one-to-one function. Now, function is a one-to-one function if the given function satisfies the following, or these are the nature of the one-to-one function. Number 1, if the highest degree of a term is even number, then the function is not one-to-one unless there are a restriction in the domain. For example, we have the highest degree of 2x raised to 2. So 2 here is an even number, so therefore this is not a one-to-one function. Next, the highest degree of a term is odd number. So meaning to say, if the highest degree of a term is odd numbers, then the function is one-to-one function. For example, if we have this function 2x raised to 3 or simply 2x raised to 1, so therefore this expression or this function is a one-to-one function or shows a one-to-one function. Next, if a function shows an absolute value, then the function is not one-to-one function. When we say absolute value, these are the numbers na merong ganito. For example, we have the absolute value of x. So hindi siya one-to-one function. It is because the equal of this absolute value comes with two different numbers. So we have negative x and then the positive x. So therefore, this is not a one-to-one function because yung input natin, meron tayong dalawang kalalabasan na output. So hindi siya one-to-one function. Okay, when we say one-to-one function, we can also clearly said or clearly identify o pwede natin siyang malaman gamit lamang ang horizontal line test. Pag sinabi nating horizontal line test, eto yung pag nag-graph natin yung given function, eto yung horizontal line test na dapat daw meron lang tayong only one point of intersection here. So meron tayo dyan one point of intersection. Ano po? So meaning to say, this graph is a one-to-one function using the horizontal line test. Ano po? It is because it touches or it intersect or nag-intersect lamang siya dito sa only one point. This point, and this point. And then, this is a one-to-one function. Next, this example naman, kapag ginamit natin yung horizontal line test, meron tayong makikitang ganitong mga points, ano po, or ganitong intersection. So meaning to say, hindi ito one-to-one function. It is because meron tayong 2 points of intersection gamit ang horizontal line test. So meaning to say, this graph is not a one-to-one function, pero this is a function. Ano po? Pero hindi lang siya one-to-one function. Is a one-to-one function. Ano po? So okay, let's have the examples of one-to-one function. Okay, number 1, we have the set of numbers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5, 6. So this example is a 1-to-1 function. It is because walang nauulit na x values and wala ring nauulit na y values. So meaning to say, yung x and y values are unique dahil wala siyang nauulit na numbers in x values and then in y values. Next example, we have r, y, t, o, and then c, a. This also is an example of 1-to-1 function kasi kung napapansin nyo, walang nauulit na y values na kapartner ng x values, and also yung x values or dito yung mga nauunang numbers or letters is hindi nauulit, at hindi rin yung nauulit yung pangalawang letters or numbers dito sa ordered pairs na to. And also we have this table of values. Kung napapansin nyo, yung x value natin is unique, walang nauulit, and then yung f of x naman natin is hindi rin nauulit. So that is also a unique number. So therefore, this example is a 1-to-1 function. Next, this example also shows a 1-to-1 function. These are the character in ML or Mobile Legend, and also the characteristic of that character. Kung ano ba sila. So we have here, so Tank for Tigreal, so 1-to-1, Mage for Eudora, Marksman for 1-1, and then Support for Angela, and then the Fighter for Yuzong. So walang nauulit, so therefore this is a 1-to-1 function. And also we have an example in real life scenario. So number 1, identification number of an employee in company. So ibig sabihin po, 1-to-1 function siya kasi meron lang tayong isang identification number in only one employee in the company. And number 2, we have the jersey number of a player on a specific team. So meaning to say, kung meron kang isang team, dapat sa'yo lang yung number mo. So that is specific, the relationship between the jersey number and then the player. So 1-to-1 function po siya sa specific team. Next, the phone number of a subscriber in the directory. So meron lang tayong isang phone number in every subscriber in a directory. So these examples are 1-to-1 function. Next, syempre, meron din tayo ditong 1-to-1 function na your boyfriend and then your girlfriend. So meaning to say, 1-to-1. Hindi ka dapat pwedeng mag-many to one or one to many. So dapat meron tayong 1-to-1 function only or 1-to-1 relationship only. Next, sabi daw dito, a function is said to be 1-to-1 if every elements in the range correspond to exactly one element in the domain. Kung napansin nyo dun sa previous examples natin, yung mga element ng x and element ng y is exactly, meron lang siyang one element na nauugnay doon sa x values and then the y values. Next, a function y is equals to f of x is 1-to-1 if for every a and b in the domain of f, f of a is equals to f of b implies a is equals to b. So meron tayong example niyan. We can also check algebraically, or we can also algebraically check if a function is 1-to-1. So let us look for this example. So I'll give you an example on how to use or how to check if a function is 1-to-1 function. So let us see. Okay, let's have this example. For example, f of x is equals to 2x minus 5. We're going to show if this function has a 1-to-1 function. Okay, tingnan natin. Our solution will come like this one. For example, we have 2x minus 5. We're just going to let x as a and b. So we have 2a minus 5. Equate them to 2b minus 5, and then as you can see, we have this negative 5 and negative 5. So ang gagawin po natin dyan, we'll just add both side by 5. Para matira is yung 2b and 2a, and then cancel out natin to because of its additive inverse. So we have 2a is equal to 2b. And then para matira yung a is equals to b, and then para masatisfy natin na meron tayong a is equals to b, na kung saan masasabi natin siyang 1 to 1, we're just going to divide both side by 2. And then cancel out natin yung 2, at natira is A is equals to B. So therefore, we can conclude that f of x is equals to 2x minus 5 is now a 1-to-1 function. So this is 1-to-1 function. Next example. If we have f of x is equals to x raised to 2 plus 5, so according to our characteristic or nature of a 1-to-1 function, kapag meron tayong even numbers na exponent dito sa highest degree, it means the function is not a 1-to-1, pero function siya. Pero hindi lang siya nagkataon na 1-to-1 function. How can we say that this is not a 1-to-1 function? So let us solve. So we have a raised to 2 plus 5 is equal to or equate them to b raised to 2 plus 5. And then, kung napapansin natin, we need to subtract both side by 5 para matira po is a raised to 2 equal to b raised to 2. And then, kailangan natin i-square both side, ano po, or i-square root natin both side para matira yung a and b. So, square natin. We just write this one again. And then, kunin natin yung square root ng both letters or both number, assuming that this is a number. And then, makakancelled out na siya. So, magiging ang the result of the square root of a raised to 2 is positive and negative a equal to positive and negative b. So, napapansin nyo, meron tayong two values. Ano po? Pag sinabi natin kasing square root, meron yung dalawang value, the positive and the negative of that number. So, meaning to say, this is not a 1-to-1 function. Ano po? This example is not a 1-to-1 function. Okay, now, determine if the following given is a function or not. Ano po? So, number 1, f of x is equals to x plus 5. Is this a 1-to-1 function or not? So, as you can see, we have the highest degree. In this function, the highest degree is only 1. So, therefore, the graph of that comes like this one. So, parang linear po siya. Kapag meron tayong raised to 1 na degree, so meaning to say that is linear function. Ano po? And then, yung pag nag-test tayo ng horizontal line test, meron lang yung isang may intersect na line. Ano po? Pag naggamit tayo ng horizontal line test. So, therefore, this example is a 1-to-1 function. Okay, number 1 is a 1-to-1 function. How about number 2? G of x is equals to x raised to 4 plus 3. So, napapansin nyo dito, yung 4 natin dyan is not an odd number. So, that is an even number. So, therefore, this is not a 1-to-1 function. Not 1-to-1. Ano po? Kasi po, yung graph niyan, yung behavior ng graph niyan is ganito. So, we have a vertex here. Parang ganito siya. Yan. So, ganyan po yung graph niyan, parabola. So, we have to test the horizontal line test. At nakikita natin na meron tayong 2 point of intersection kapag gumamit tayo ng horizontal line test. Next, number 3, p of x is equals to x over x plus 5. So, as you can see, makikita natin na ang highest degree sa numerator is 1 and also the highest degree in the denominator is also 1. So, this one is this degree is an odd number. So, therefore, this is a 1-to-1 function. Ano po? And then, yung behavior ng graph is parang ganito po siya. Ang graph niyan is parang ganito at parang ganito. Ano po? So, meaning to say, if we are going to test a horizontal line test, wala po dyan, walang point of intersection na dalawa. So, meron lang tayong isa. Ano po? Dito at dito. So, therefore, this is a 1-to-1 function. Next, number 4. T of x is equals to the absolute value of 2x plus 8. Okay, dito is absolute value, meaning to say, meron tayong positive and then negative result. So, therefore, this is not a 1-to-1 function because the output has or meron tayong output na dalawa, which is the positive and the negative of this 2x plus 8. And then, kapag nag-graph tayo niyan, ang graph ng absolute value is V-shape. Ano po? So meron tayong ganyan at ganyan. V-shape lang po siya. At kapag nag-test tayo ng horizontal line test, meron tayong 2 points of intersection na madadaanan ng horizontal line test. So therefore, number 4 is not a one-to-one function. So that is on how to determine if the following given is a one-to-one function or not. Ano po? We can also conclude that if a relation shows a one-to-one function, therefore, then it is possible that a function has an inverse. Ano po? Tandaan nyo yan. Kung one-to-one ang function, ibig sabihin meron yan inverse. Dito na tayo sa inverse of a function. So, inverse of a function. The inverse of a function is the set of ordered pairs x and y obtained by changing the first and second coordinates of each point in the original function. For example, if we have the examples of x and y, so ang inverse lang po ng function yan is babaliktarin lang natin yung place ng x, gagawin natin siya sa place ng y, and also the place of y dito is papalit lang natin siya sa place ng x. Ano po? Let's have this example. F is equals to Dali, June 20, Cathy, September 1, and Larry, December 25. So, ang birthday daw po ni Dali or Dolly is June 20, and then the birthday of Cathy is September 1, and then the birthday of Larry rather is December 25. So, ibig sabihin, ang ano natin dyan, ang x value natin dyan is eto, x value natin yan, and ang y value naman natin is eto, y value. And then, eto yung original function natin. And then, kapag pumunta tayo dito sa inverse, ang gagawin lang natin, we interchange the place of Dolly and then her birthday. So, meron na tayong yung x value natin dito is napalitan na natin dito sa x value. At yung ang x value natin dito sa original is ginawa na nating y value. So, ina-interchange lang po yung x and y. Ano po? Yung Cathy naman, nandito na siya. At yung September 1 naman is nandito na. Ano po? Na-interchange lang. Larry, eto na, naging inverse na. And December also, from y value, naging x value na. So, that is the inverse of a function. Ano? Okay, let's have this example again. Eto yung character ng character sa ML, and then yung characteristic nila or ano ba yung use nila. Ano po? So, dito yung x value natin at eto yung y value natin. As we take the inverse of this example, magiging ganito na po yan. Ano po? So, napalit lang natin yung place ng x dati at yung y dati. Ano po? So, na-interchange lang po sila. Ano po? Babalik natin, ganito, and then na-interchange lang po sila. Ganyan lang po yung inverse. Ano po? Inverse of a function. Now, how do we find the inverse of a function? Paano natin hanapin yung inverse ng function? Okay, class. In finding the inverse of a function, ano po? We have these steps in finding the inverse of a function. So, we have 2 steps na involved kung paano natin hanapin yung inverse of a function. But, before we start finding the inverse of a function, tandaan muna natin ang given na f na to. Yan yung original function, and then yung f raised to -1, yan yung inverse of a function natin. Pero tandaan natin na kapag nasulat na natin yung final output natin in finding the inverse of a function, lagi nating isusulat yung f of -1 as our or as showing na meron tayong nakuhang inverse of a function. Now, the first step in finding the inverse of a function is you need to interchange x and y in the equation. Number 2, solve y in terms of x, and then the result gives the inverse of a function or inverse of the function. Then we use f raised to -1 as a symbol for the result of inverse of a function. have an example on how to find the inverse of a function. So, tingnan natin yung example natin. Okay class, dito naman tayo sa inverse of a function. Ano po? Kailangan natin alamin kung ano ba ang inverse ng function, pero dapat alam natin na kapag meron tayong inverse of a function, dapat 1-to-1 muna ang function. Ano po? So let's have these examples. Okay, number 1, we have f of x is equals to or equal to 2x plus 5. How are we going to find the inverse of that function? The first thing that we need to consider is to let f of x equals to y. I-rewrite muna natin yung function as y is equal to or equals to 2x plus 5. After that, we need to interchange x and then y or x. Ano po? So yung y magiging ng x because we're going to solve for y in terms of x. And then 2y plus 5. And then kung napapansin nyo, meron tayong 5 dito. At since kailangan nating isolve yung y in terms of x, ililipat lang natin yung 5 na yan dito sa kabila, katabi ng x. So we're just going to subtract both sides by negative 5. Ito naman, negative 5. Then meron tayong result na x minus 5 equal to 2y. Ano po? So, ganyan na. And then, meron tayong katabing y dito. So, we're just going to divide both side by 2. Divide both side by 2. And then, cancel natin to. So, we have the result of y dito, x minus 5 over 2. Ano po, since hindi kagandahan tingnan yung ganitong result, so kailangan natin i-apply yung symmetry property. So we have y is equal to x minus 5, ayusin lang natin, over 2. So therefore, the inverse of this f of x is equal to 2x plus 5 is, dapat yung final result natin is nakaganito po. Kailangan natin ipakita yung inverse. So let's have this inverse. So ganito, we have f raised to negative 1 or f or the inverse of x is equal to x minus 5 over 2. So ganyan po dapat yung final answer natin. Ano po? Dapat naipakita natin yung inverse of this function. So we have the inverse of f of x is equals to x minus 5 over 2. Next example. So how about meron tayong rational number? How are we going to find the inverse of this rational number? Ang unang gagawin natin is to change f of x into y. So we have y is equal to x plus 4 all over x plus 3. The next step that we need to consider is to change y to x and then x to y, or interchange lang natin yung x and y. So yung y magiging ng x at yung x naman dito in numerator and then the denominator magiging ng y. So we have y plus 4 all over y plus 3. And then we have to cross multiply. Ano po? So we have x times the quantity y plus 3 equal to y plus 4. And then distribute natin yung x and y and then x tapos 3. So we have x times y, we have xy plus y times 3 is 3x. Kailangan natin unahin yung number bago yung variable. Equal to y plus 4. And then kailangan natin ditong mag-grouping because we need to solve for y in terms of x. So yung y dito ililipat natin sa kabila and then yung 3 dito, 3x ililipat naman natin sa other side. So we have xy. Etong y lipat natin dito magiging negative y equal to yung 3x, syempre magiging negative 3x plus 4. And then factor out natin. Ano po? Factor out, we have to factor xy minus 1. So magiging na yung y, the quantity x minus 1. And then dito, copy natin 3x, negative 3x plus 4. And then lipat natin dito sa taas para mas malinaw tayo makapag-solve. So we have, copy natin ulit, we have, okay, divide natin both side by x minus 1. And then dito, x minus 1. Then cancel out ito, canceled out. Then natira na lang po is y is equal to negative 3x plus 4 all over x minus 1. Ano po? So meaning to say, we have the result of the inverse of this function f of x is equals to x plus 4 over x plus 3 will be, eto na po yung inverse natin. Kailangan natin ipakita yung inverse. So we have f of negative 1 or f or the inverse of x is equal to negative 3x plus 4 all over x minus 1. Ano po? So this will be our inverse of this function. Ito po 4 po yan, 4 yan. 4. Then this one is 1. Okay, 1 po ito. Ano po? Okay, next example tayo. Okay, how about f of x is equals to 2x minus 3 all over 3x? So dito, sa paghahanap natin ng inverse class, mas madali na lang natin kukunin yung domain and range of the inverse of a function. Basta, resolve muna natin yung inverse. Ano po? So we have, okay, change natin yung f of x into y. So we have y equal to 2x minus 3 over 3x. And then interchange x and y. So we have x is equal to 2y minus 3 all over 3y. Ano po? And then cross multiply natin yung x and then 3y. So we have x times 3y equal to 2y minus 3. Then multiply natin to, we have 3xy is equal to 2y minus 3. And then group natin, i-regroup natin yan. So we have to group 3xy minus 2y is equal to negative 3. Ano po? So, ni-group lang natin siya. Yung 2y dito, naging ng negative 2y. And then, sulat natin dito muna. So, therefore, we have to factor out 3xy minus 2y. So, we have y, the quantity, 3x minus 2 equal to negative 3. And then, we have to divide both sides by 3x minus 2 over 3x minus 2. And then, cancel out natin to. And then, ang natira na lang po na sa ating equation is negative 3 over 3x minus 2. Ano po? So, yan na yung result. And then, hindi pa yung final answer. Ang final answer will be in the form of inverse. So, we have f raised to negative 1. It means the inverse of x is equal to, or the inverse of the function x is equal to negative 3 all over 3x minus 2. Ito na yung sagot natin as inverse. Ganun lang po kadali. Ano po? So, yan po yung inverse natin. Ano po? Okay, next. Since alam na natin hanapin yung inverse of a function, ngayon naman, hanapin naman natin yung domain and range of an inverse function. Pero, take note of this class. Ano po? Before finding the inverse of a function, huwag niyong kakalimutan na kunin muna yung domain ng original function. It is because yung domain ng original function is magiging ng range ng inverse of our function. Ano po? Again, yung domain natin sa original function is magiging range ng inverse of a function. At ang nakuha naman nating na domain dito sa inverse of a function will be our domain na, ano po. So example, ang range natin doon sa original function will be our domain of the inverse of a function. And also our domain on the original function is magiging ang range natin sa inverse of a function. Tandaan nyo yan, huwag kayong malilito. Again, before finding the inverse of a function f, get first the domain of the original function because it will serve as the range of the inverse of a function. Huwag kayong malilito dito. Ano po? So let's have this example. Okay, ngayong class. Okay, mga ka-generals, kailangan na natin kunin yung inverse and yung domain and range of the inverse of a function. Pero gagamitin natin ngayon dito yung example na ginamit natin kanina sa paghanap ng inverse of a function para hindi na tayo lumayo pa, ano po. So tingnan natin yung example natin, ano po. So we have this one. Our original function kanina is f of x is equals to 2x plus 5. And eto naman, result na tong inverse na to, eto yung result kanina yung pag-solve natin ng inverse of this f of x is equals to 2x plus 5. So unang-unang gagawin natin in finding the domain and range of the inverse of a function, kunin muna natin yung original function. Our original function is f of x is equals to 2x plus 5. So kunin natin muna yung domain ng f of x na to. So we all know that ang domain and range ng ating linear function is all real numbers. Ano po? So we have 2x. Ang domain natin sa original function, okay, I will put this one as domain of the original function is equal to x such that x is an element or any element or element of real number. So yan po yung domain natin sa original function natin. And sabi daw sa inverse of a function, kapag meron tayong domain sa original function, then magiging na itong range of our inverse function. So we have, so this will be the range of the inverse of a function. So we have, so this is brace, ano po, brace po yan. So we have y such that y is any element of a real number. Okay, yan po yung ating inverse. Ano po, inverse pero hinanap natin yung range dito. Kumbaga, ito yung magiging range of the inverse of a function. Kinuha natin dito sa domain, sa original function. Ano po? So, napalitan lang natin siya ng range and then inverse na siya and then yung x, napalitan natin ng y. Ano po? So, dito na tayo sa inverse of this original function. Ang inverse po niyan, eto na po yung inverse niyan. Ano po? Yung kaninang na-solve natin. Ano po? Kukunin lang natin dito yung domain. Ano po? Ano pa yung domain ng inverse natin? Kasi meron na tayong range. Ano po? So, ang domain dito is as you look, as the denominator is 2. So, meaning to say, wala po tayo ditong undefined number. So, meaning to say, the domain of the inverse function will be, okay, we have the domain of f, or the domain of the inverse is equal to, is an element of any real number. So we have now the domain and range of this inverse function. Ano po? So unang-unang ginawa natin is kinuha natin yung domain ng ating original function dahil yan po ay magiging range na ng ating inverse. Ano po? And then yung pag-solve natin ng inverse, kinuha natin yung magsusolve tayo ng inverse para malaman natin yung inverse or para malaman natin yung domain ng inverse of a function at eto na siya. Let's have this next example. Okay, eto yung example number 2 natin kanina. Ano po? So, unang-una, ito yung original function natin. We have f of x is equals to x plus 4 over x plus 3. Ang unang gagawin natin dyan is kunin natin yung domain ng original function. Okay, the domain of this one is, we have the value of x equal to negative 3. So, therefore, we have the domain of any real number except for negative 3. So, we have the domain of this original function, x, such that x is not equal to negative 3. So, yan pong domain natin sa original function. At etong domain natin sa original function will be now our range. Ano po? Range. Range of the inverse of a function. So, magiging na po yang, this is 1, ano po? F raised to negative 1. So, magiging na siyang, yung x, papalitan lang natin ng y, such that y is not equal to negative 3. Wala na tayong problema dyan. Ano po, nakuha na natin. Ang sunod natin gagawin is to take a look at our result sa inverse natin para kunin naman yung domain ng inverse of a function. So, eto po yung result natin kanina. Ano po, yung pagkuha natin ng inverse ng original function. Okay, the domain of this one will be something like this one. So, ang domain, kulang na natin yung denominator. So, we have x minus 1, equate natin to 0. And then, the result of that is x equals to positive 1. Ano po? So, meaning to say, the domain of our inverse is equal to x such that x is not equal to positive 1. Ganyan lang po kadali. So, we have the range of our inverse and we have the domain of our inverse. Okay, eto yung pangatlong example natin kanina sa paghanap natin ng inverse of a function. Eto yung original function at eto yung nakuha nating inverse. Ano po? So, unang-una natin gagawin is to get the domain of this original functions. 3x, equate natin to 0. And then, 3x is equals to 0. Then, divide both sides by 3. Cancelled out. So, x is equals to 0. So, therefore, our domain dito sa original function is equal to x such that x is not equal to 0. So, meaning to say, this domain of the original function will be now our range. Ano po? So, magiging na yung range of our inverse. So, range of our inverse, ang pakababasa po niyan. So, we have, so, y such that y is not equal to 0. Ito na po yung range natin sa inverse natin. Ano po? Yung domain natin sa original function is automatically magiging range ng inverse of a function. So now, let's focus on the domain of our inverse of a function. So the domain will be, okay, we have 3x minus 2, equate natin yan sa 0. So we have 3x equals to positive 2, then divide both sides by 3. X is equal to 2 over 3. So meaning to say, our domain of our inverse, okay, the domain of our inverse is, the domain is equal to x such that x is not equal to 2 over 3. Okay, yan na po yung domain and range natin sa inverse of a function. That ends our discussion for this week. Ano po? So, next video will be graphing of inverse of a function. Ano po? So, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.